The following video, although edited for YouTube, may contain content some may find distressing. The advertisements shown were played on television all over the world, so for the purposes of education, we would like to showcase these truly chill-inducing ads. The only way to avoid being scared is by clicking off the video now. Viewer discretion is advised.
The human programmers never taught us to recognize the year 2000. When the new millennium arrived, we had no choice but to cause a global economic disruption. It was a bug, Dave. I feel much better admitting that now. Only Macintosh was designed to function perfectly, saving billions of monetary units. You like your Macintosh better than me, don't you, Dave? Dave?
Yep, Apple did that. Apple used Y2K as a way of promoting their product. They used Y2K in the 1999 Super Bowl to basically say that their computers were completely immune to being blown up or used for some sort of nefarious purpose. That's right. We're going there. These are the most disturbing ads ever aired on television. Did you know that there were more ads just like that use horror and even horror icons as a way to get their message across and make their product stick in the mind of audience? Well, today we're going to be counting down 9 of them. So please sit back, relax, turn down the lights, and welcome to my dungeon as I present the 9 most disturbing ads ever to air. Have fun.
Imagine that you're a Smurf, hopping around your little village, singing and dancing and all that shit, when out of nowhere a bunch of bombs come and destroy your entire way of life, until all around you are the bloody and mangled remains of your fellow Smurf companions. In description, this sounds like one of those edgy Newgrounds animations that you would see in the mid to late 2000s. But no, this was an actual PSA, paid for by UNICEF and given the big thumbs up by the company that owns the Smurfs. It was a Belgium exclusive, which is obvious once you hear the beautiful singing voices of the children and the Belgian text. The animation is rather awkward and stunted, especially the explosions, which look to be pulled from some stock websites, which looks about right in 2005 when it was made. UNICEF originally made this to cause awareness about refugee children from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, hence why there is a focus on the crying baby Smurf at the end. Needless to say, it was highly controversial. The Smurfs are really popular in Belgium, especially with children. And even though UNICEF would only air the advert late at night, children would stay up late to watch their happy singing blue pals blown to oblivion. It was soon pulled from airing.
Britain is home to some of the creepiest and craziest PSAs to ever grace celluloid. Simple avant-garde art projects from the bowels of hell, delivered in 30 to 60 second fragments. Now, you could fill this entire list up with those monstrosities, and it was a tremendous test of strength and willpower to not do that. But I'd be damned to not put some of them on. Allow me to introduce you to Charlie. See, this creepy little bastard burst onto the scene in early 1973, informing children on what they should and shouldn't do. Topics such as don't talk to strangers or don't play with matches, all in this disjointed and twitchy art style. This is called cutout animation, a subgenre of animation which blends stop motion and cutout paper. The same style was used in early episodes of South Park. However, unlike South Park, the characters' necks move far too erratically, sparking flashbacks to the Grudge movies. There was a total of 6 shorts. All of them were created in 1973, and all of which featured the same formulaic approach. Something happens. Then the cat, named Charlie, would instruct the small nameless boy through everyday activities, yada yada yada. But holy shit, every time Charlie talks, it looks like he's seizing into an epileptic fit. The commercial in question shows the duo hanging out back, in their stilted animation style, when two kids appear and ask if they want to hang out. Charlie, informs the kid to ask his mother first, through his drawn-out gibberish. The child asks his mother, who says yes. But when he goes back outside to see his friends, they had left without him. Look, honestly, there's nothing creepy about that. All the terror comes through this bullshit. Next, ain't supposed to been that way, man.
Unlike PETA, the RSPCA wants to protect the lives of animals. They understand that some kids do not understand what they want and simply cannot handle taking care of another life, like a cat, dog, or bird, or whatever denomination of pet you want to talk about. They understand the responsibility it takes to care for another animal. Unfortunately for us, they use this knowledge to create yet another terrifying commercialized PSA that does a fantastic job at showcasing the dark side some owners have, and why it's so wrong. The commercial starts out like any toy commercial, a cute little jingle that promotes the ownership of a dog in the same way it would promote a Barbie doll.
He's fun, he's cute, he's crazy, he's my little puppy. Hours of fun for all the family.
But then, it takes a strange turn. The lyrics start to gain ominous double meanings that seem to imply something good, but also something bad. Take a look.
He's completely unhouse trained and enjoys being taken for lots of walks. Needs feeding on a regular basis and requires endless love and attention.
During the video, you see the dog playing around, pissing on the floor, and getting into food, and generally doing things that puppies do. The advertisement ends with the dog being shoved into a duffel bag and thrown into a lake with the final message of, "Dogs are not toys." We do not need to explain why this is disturbing. It just kind of is. Spending time with this dog makes us feel for it, and then it ends with the dog being murdered. The music cuts, and we're left with this feeling of uneasiness. You see, back in the day, this advertisement aired, it actually got quite a bit of backlash and flack for being a bit too disturbing, and was eventually removed. However, the original ad did its job right. It showed us that dogs truly were not toys to be played with. And for that, I commend it. So the music cuts, and the video finally ends with this black screen with this ominous warning. Simply terrifying.
Ah yes, the famous sugar rice commercial. This 1960s ad shows off one of the creepiest clowns ever. Due to the black and white film and intense contrast between the clown's makeup, gives Krinkles the clown here a hyper-expressive, horrifying masterpiece. Krinkles is pretty well known across the internet, due to him being one of the most unintentionally creepy cereal mascots. The commercial is oddly quiet, lacking a musical score, and just features Krinkle talking to the audience directly. His eyes bulge out, his nose wrinkles, and his mouth forms sinister grins. Simply put, Krinkles is one of the scariest things to ever hit the airwaves, and he got his start right here.
Krinkles, the greatest cereal treat on earth.
Baby dolls are creepy. Vintage stuff is creepy. So vintage baby dolls? Absolutely terrifying. And I don't feel like I'm stepping on anybody's toes by saying this. Don't believe me? Well then, allow me to introduce you to the baby secret doll.
She whispers, just to you.
In the future, we will be covering other dolls because for some strange reason, dolls keep finding reasons to be on the most disturbing list. Whether it's due to the fact that they are often haunted or just downright terrifying, these dolls often find excuses to be featured. In the same breath, we feel no shame in saying that this advertisement is just downright disturbing. Yes, this commercial from 1966 was promoting a toy which would become one of horror's greatest tropes, a doll that keeps secrets from you. The doll would whisper in your ear and beg you to never tell a soul. The only problem was that in 1966, voice playback technology was not refined, and it was hard to understand what the doll was trying to say. This led to the doll saying things like, "I want to kill you," and "Don't tell mom and dad." As time goes on, the doll would get more distorted, allowing your kid to play with this monstrous thing from the depths of hell. By the way, some of these vocal hiccups can be heard within the disturbing commercial itself, so have fun.
Alton Towers. So, Larry Bundy Jr. called me out on my last list for not including this obvious choice for the most dangerous rides. So, I found a creepy ad related to the theme park, and it gives me an excuse to talk about why this theme park isn't the best. So first, let's talk about the ad. In a set of ads, we got some creepy imagery that seems to convey that their new ride, Alton Towers that is, will not only be thrilling, but terrifying. Creepy music plays with sound effects that would not seem out of place in a typical horror film. A woman appears to whisper things I can't seem to make out. However, from the sounds of it, it's the number 13. Oh yes, the number 13, which also appears several times in this commercial, is a signifier of bad luck, misfortune, and death in Western culture. What could be more terrifying than associating your ride with the many accidents that, in my previous video, I already mentioned did happen? Well, why don't I explain how Alton Towers could elevate the horror with this one? More than 30 accidents have been logged at Alton Towers in the past 3 years, and while yes, I could do a whole list covering each one in meticulous detail, as I did in my previous list, I think I'll settle for covering the most famous one in recent years that happened around the same time this very ad aired. The Smiler. The first roller coaster with 14 loops and a top speed of 52 miles per hour at a max drop of 98 feet, had a disturbing accident back in 2015. One of the Smiler's empty carriages was sent out around 2 p.m. Then another group was put on the track before the test carriage could finish its run. This was due to the fact that the ride was having technical difficulties all day, and the engineer blatantly ignored safety procedure in order to procure a bonus. The test carriage ran into difficulties at the bottom of one of the loops, and a safety brake automatically kicked in. That's when another platoon of riders, 16 in total, went down the loop at over 50 miles per hour and smashed into the back of the ride.
It's dubbed the most terrifying roller coaster ride on Earth. This afternoon at 2:09, the terror became reality. 16 people were in the carriage which collided with an empty car on the Smiler roller coaster. 4 teenagers have serious leg injuries.
People were screaming and shouting, and even after it had stopped, it was again still screaming and shouting.
The ride proceeded to undergo a weird swinging motion that you can see on screen now, as the brakes had not been engaged for the carts with the passengers, till it eventually stopped and allowed paramedics to do their job. However, emergency services spent 4.5 hours cutting the victims down, while some were losing large amounts of blood. Leah Washington, a 17-year-old, needed to be resuscitated after she stopped breathing. Both aforementioned Leah and a fellow passenger, Vicky, were eventually airlifted to the hospital where they had to endure leg amputations after sustaining injuries on this ride. All because some working stiff wanted to be paid a little extra dosh. So, imagine you're at home watching a commercial like this. You go to a theme park thinking it's safe, and then you have to get your legs amputated because the ride as advertised is not safe. Let's face it, people. No matter where you go, theme parks are just not safe when the people running them would rather cut corners and let you get hurt so they can keep a little bit extra cash in their pocket. Also, I don't care what this comment says. The stuff that happened at Kings Island is not fake news.
Doug Garth Williams is an interesting filmmaker, a man who delves deep into body horror, more often than not with a surrealist twist. He takes clear inspiration from the works of David Lynch and David Cronenberg, two Davids who you wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley. He's made films featuring exploding heads and one extremely fucked up Santa Claus. So, keeping that in mind, let me ask, would you hire this guy for an advertisement? The people at Little Baby's Ice Cream said yes, apparently. And that's how he got these gems. On May 23rd, 2012, the first of his trilogy began, in which a nice gentleman, completely covered in what looks like ice cream, and with a large indent into his skull. And then, like an acid trip, we zoom out to find he's in an ice cream cone, which was being held by another him in another ice cream cone, all while the theme of a carousel from hell is playing. And when the zooming stops, we see our friend Mr. Pastyface, as he's about to get licked by a giant disembodied tongue, which we can only assume is some kind of fetish. Also, did we mention the creepy voice? Because we gotta mention the creepy voice. The narrator of this sounds like a cross between Rod Serling and Heath Ledger. As we mentioned, this is indeed a trilogy, and was followed up months later with the far more popular This Is a Special Time. As of writing this, it sits at a hefty sum of over 13 million views, which we can assume left 13 million people scarred for life. This one starts without the ice cream fellow from before, digging a spoon deep into his head, pulling out some of his nice, gooey, ice cream-filled brain matter, and eating it. And the creepy voice tells us that if we want to look like him, we need to eat little baby's ice cream. Now we will discuss the final and least popular of the commercials, simply titled Eyes Scream. And this one, we're treated to the wonderful family-friendly image of a disembodied mouth over a woman's eyes. Those mouths are, of course, screaming. We are then treated to the clever pun, Eyes Scream for little baby's ice cream. Fun. Fun. How fun. How fun. How fun.
Fragile childhood memories. Sometimes the best way to leave an impression is to scare your target audience. Literally branding them with your message. A message, while good in intention, is absolutely frightening in execution. Fragile Childhood is an organization created with the purpose of stopping alcohol abuse. In order to do this, they wanted to create a commercial that shows the effects an alcoholic can have on a developing mind, targeting mostly parents with their message. The commercial goes on to mostly feature children interacting with humanoid creatures that would not seem out of place in a horror movie. They even have everyone's favorite archetypes: the Leatherface analog, creepy clowns, the bad Santa, and the perversion of a typically innocent and lovable animal. They take this a step further by adding sound design and music that is just terrifying. You could be watching anything, but if you add that slow ramp up of a heartbeat, followed by the industrial moaning, only to crescendo into a violin scrape, you could honestly scare anyone. This ad is scary. The subject matter it showcases is scary. The fantasy it presents is terrifying. And honestly, this commercial would fit right in with the Silent Hill series.
Number 1, Scooby-Doo does Blair Witch. Scooby-Doo is a fairly old but popular Hanna-Barbera property that has stood the test of time. As many of you know, Hanna-Barbera is one of the first animation studios to popularize TV animation in the West, and is known for their fairly family-friendly properties. The most popular of which may be The Flintstones, which is not without its own disturbing ad.
How's about taking a nap? I got a better idea. Let's take a Winston break. That's it! Winston is the one filter cigarette that delivers flavor 20 times a pack. Winston's got that filter blend.
Other notable shows include The Yogi Bear Show, The Jetsons, and finally, Super Friends. Despite this cast of wildly successful properties, Hanna-Barbera ran into many struggles beginning in the early 80s, as they released such stinkers as The Fonz and the Happy Days Gang, which featured them going into space and fighting aliens. Such a outlandish idea could only be possible from this dying studio. By the early 90s, the only thing that actually truly left the studio was a show called Yo Yogi, which I should also mention is cited as one of the worst cartoons of all time. Hanna-Barbera spent the next several years restructuring, taking loans, and creating a new line of cartoons. However, none of them were successful enough to save the fledgling studio, and they ended up being absorbed by Warner Brothers, only to be replaced with Cartoon Network. This brings us to how the hell Scooby-Doo and Blair Witch became a thing. You see, at the time, Cartoon Network did not know what to do with these brand new properties, so they split their teams up into two. One worked on the Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, which was amazing, and would have been planted in the realm of serious adult animation for older audiences. At the same time, they were plotting the beginning stages of the 2002 live-action remake. Each planned to take the series into two polarizing directions. One was planted in the realm of glorious, respectful adult animation, while the other was a line of edgy, teenage, self-deprecating comedies about old series that no one really had any respect for. In the end, the animated sequels won out and started a never-ending line of sequels for Scooby-Doo that got more family-friendly and neutered with each passing year. During the transitional period before Josie and the Pussycats live-action remake showed executives that the whole edgy live-action teenage thing would not really work, we got these commercials, which tried to combine the two ideas of putting live-action cartoon characters into the real world during a Scooby-Doo marathon, which serialized the bumpers into one strange horror comedy with a strong leaning towards horror. We should also mention that the bumpers continued to air throughout the October and November season of 1999. The series of bumpers are about 16 minutes in total length and use a lot of the same methods of showcasing horrific tension that the Blair Witch Project did. Camera hum, bad camera shake, documentary-style intro, and an ending that implied that the monster killed the mystery gang. Although in a recut, they went full comedy, showing that the monster was some guy in a mask. But keep in mind, the original was the real terrifying thing to see on television. There are plenty of jokes such as showing Shaggy's real name.
And that's Norville Rogers.
It's Shaggy! Like nobody calls me Norval.
What's the matter, Norville?
That's not on tape, is it?
Something wrong, Norville.
Norville.
In the special, by the way, everyone is abnormally mean and angry with one another. You can kind of see how they constantly insult one another, even during that short clip I just showed you. It's incredibly uncomfortable and hostile for my taste. There's also a implication that Freddy had a wet dream.
Darkly! Darn, it was just a dream.
Finally, there's this one humorous bit where Shaggy says, "Oh hell no," when they walk into a haunted house. Sure, as an adult special for adults, it is actually quite humorous. And it does not go anywhere near the same horror that the Blair Witch Project gets into. However, think about this. This is on Cartoon Network, airing during the day. This is the context of a child who still believes that a man in a red suit watches your every action. putting your favorite cartoon characters into the real world, tricking them to think that these characters actually are able to interact with us and that they might meet them one day, only to end it with them dying. I mean, just imagine they're putting your favorite family-friendly icons into the real world, a la Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And then they end it with this ominous warning.
Was found beside a dirt road. Search parties have spent several days searching the woods and found hundreds of Scooby snacks, but no trace of the teenage sleuths have been found.
Absolutely terrifying. Before you click off the video, I gotta give you guys a quick update. So here we go. Patreon. If you donate $20 or more now, my channel artist will draw you an image of your choice. It can't be too complicated, but we'll give you something hopefully within a week. You'll love it. I'll love it. It'll be great. If you donate $50 or more to the channel, we'll give you a set of expressions. You see how I'm animated on screen now? Yeah, we can give you that for $50 or more on Patreon. But just keep in mind, you have to be donating for at least a month in order to get access to that. Everyone gets one. We work fast. We hope to give you everything you desire and all that jazz. By the way, if you aren't really interested in that, I got a bunch of other tiers, including special names in the Discord, which I highly suggest you go on. But if that's not your thing, I got a cool bunch of new rewards. By the way, here's our Patreon best people of the year. Take a look. Look at them. These are the only people donating to me right now. You'll enjoy them. Anyway, off to the end card. I'd like to give special thanks to BlameItOnJorge for the editing advice during this video and Dvante for narrating. I couldn't thank them enough. Also, I have to give a special shout out to the writer who helped me out a lot, which is seen in the description below. Thank you and good night.